They're on the horizon. So, just before the Gate was built is the start of the Industrial Revolution back in, well, that's 1803. So we're going to go back to 1775, so just before the era that we're in now. So in 1775 we're in the era of what's called the age of discovery. So the first study of teeth, as in being transplanted from one person to another, took place in this era. The man's plan was, John Hunter I think he's called, the man's plan was to buy teeth from the poor people, sell them to the rich. But teeth are actually rejected by the body's immune system, so you cannot transplant them. But it's the first signs that we're trying to play around with science a little bit. So this is the official start of the Bury Bolton and Bury Canal Company docks. It's actually the canal company, everybody says that. It's actually the company canal. So it's the Manchester Bury Bolton Company, that's the name of the company, and it's their canal. Quite a long title really, that's why I call it the MBBC, but that's what it is. But it does start here in this area. This is the site, Daisyfield Mill. It's also the site, I think it's Skulls had a bleach worked on the other side of the Irwell, which is situated quite close. About 400 metres, 300 metres in that direction, which is actually towards the south. That's Manchester town centre. Down there, some filter beds and places where boats can dock. We can't get in there right now. It's quite simply because I don't know the way. And it could be quite treacherous underfoot, as they say. Judging by the fact it's all very overgrown and swampy. And I want to press on a little bit because this is the start of the canal, but it's not the beginning of one end. It doesn't really have a start because it's Bolton and Bury, you know, in even amounts. So you could say it starts in the middle at Knob End Lock Gates. So we're getting some noisy wildlife at this time of night. Photosynthesis, 1770s, late 1770s. And Uranus is actually called Uranus. Sorry, but it is. William Herschel discovered Uranus, 13th of March 1781 we're now up to. People are now charting and cataloguing stars and nebula. Also in this period, parachute was first used. There was a manned flight in a hot air balloon, which was heated on the ground and didn't take fuel up with it, so it had to come back down straight away. Although the Chinese claim that they invented balloon flights much sooner, I think that's true. But in the Industrial Revolution times, it only fits with what was going on in the time. So they might have been using balloons I think it's ancient China or Japan, but not for the same purposes we were, so they would be different. We came up with canals, they came up with hot air balloons. And they still have lanterns to this day. You might see them at Chinese New Year. Gotta get that tree. So, we're going to start on this tree, because it's also the era of botany. James Hutton Scott discovers that rocks and sedimentary materials found in the ground can tell us about the past. He started to catalogue different types of rocks and layers, and he also found patterns in time repeating themselves. There you go. So mass extinctions do happen, and I'm not saying any more. There's a lot of things going extinct. We think we're causing it, but maybe it's an era of mass extinction once again. So let's all keep our heads down, because nature decides these things. As much as we like to think we're in charge, as much as we like to think that we're in charge, nature actually decides most things. So we've got a bird sounding off. So parachutes, balloon fights, someone tried to transplant teeth, which is, so they're studying biology, electricity. They found electricity in the human body. Not sure how they traced that, but one guy's got a theory that that's what causes migraines. He also believes electricity determines our eye colour, which is wrong, but he's trying to now, that's the first neurology. And, you know, people studying the central nervous system. So it's a big step now. But if you think how different the world was in 1969 to the year 2019, that's 50 years. From no internet, you know what I mean? There was still steam-powered trains. There was in the 60s. They were the main mode of transport. Part was steam train. So Manchester. Hope we're getting all this information down. And so we're in an area now, it's not really on any maps, but it's part of the Bury Bolton Canal, which isn't in existence anymore. Anyone who remembers back to early 80s, 70s, will remember the canal went right up to Bury Bridge in Bury Wharf, Bury's Canal Wharf. So just get some information about this area. As we follow down, you can clearly see it's a canal channel. Hopefully. So hopefully you can see this is a canal channel. At this point, yeah, so at that point, canal channel, and it's all part of Daisyfield Mills and Daisyfield Court. So I was talking about the study of electricity, static electricity. Somebody dissects a frog, sticks two metal wires, copper wires, one in each leg, and I assume, and during a thunderstorm points these wires up towards the sky. And guess what happens? You guessed it, the frog's legs start jumping and kicking, literally jumping about. They've been reanimated. So people now believe, or they're working on, the fact that if we're electrical, we could reanimate the dead. That's true. So we're into another ghost story. As I said, witches, they pop up because I'll explain the origins of it, and I'll explain the origins of sort of zombies and the fear of the science and the supernatural. There is a fear of science, and of course this is wrong. You can actually bring people back to life if they die and you get them, straight away with a nebulizers or a defibrillator. So people do actually pass away and get brought back to life, and it's quite common now. Never used to be as common. It's actually quite a bit of a miracle, really, what we'd call a miracle back in the day. Well, of course we know it's not a miracle. It's a lot of science and very good doctors. So I don't want to ruin the playlist with getting wind. So electricity is inside every living thing. That's a fact. Even you, whoever's watching this, you're full of electricity. This inspires Mary Shelley to write Frankenstein. She's one of the first females that, is notable from these eras. Literature plays a great part in these eras. People who like books, basically. So I'll get some of the channel in here. So, and look how the fence is buried, the old fence that was there. And you can see there filter beds and part of the canal, docklands, dock area. The canal's still flowing off. I'm going to point towards, in front of the trees in the distance, and along you can see a straight line. So that's the Bury Canal. It's now blocked off and filled in, but it comes all the way along here, all the way up to Bury Bridge. So it's a good mile longer than we thought, and plus this is Daisyfield Court area, has a channel extension that isn't really on any map, so it's built late on, I should imagine. And filter bed maybe, it maybe flows underneath the canal. Anyway, it's irrelevant, it's part of the site which is all linked into the canal. Because it does actually go underneath. You know what, I think it goes underneath the canal. So therefore, it probably flows under the canal, so it's probably a filter bed and part of the systems of the Egyptian mill was also in this area. Daisyfield Mill in Scoles's. So it's all in here, and we're going to get more in depth. We're going to end this with Daisyfield, and hopefully you can see, right, we still only explained the Goit system and the local mills in this area. We still have the canal to follow, and that's all still part of the same playlist. So we'll be heading off where I was just pointing. So now we're here. A point I've walked past plenty of times before. Oh, it's all been cut open, look, it must be improving it. So a cycle lane maybe. So it goes off over there, we've got the sunset. Sunset is on us. Oil. So oil lamps are being used still. Soon there will be gas lighting, because engines are now starting to be discovered and played with in the same era, but they're just not practical enough yet. But scientists and engineers know that there's a link where they can get an engine to make a machine to power a wheel, whatever. Anyway, they're advancing with machinery. As we start at the canal, we will enter the age of revolution. And of course Mary Shelley, before these sort of times, women like Mary Shelley, who came up with stories like that, Frankenstein, were seen as witches, basically. They didn't understand where they were getting the knowledge from, why they were so in-depth in their thoughts. So Mary Shelley is an area where these sort of things are starting to be stopped. More and more people are saying, no, it's not right. Even having children working in mills is now being spoke about, but it's not going to get stopped just yet. That goes right through the Industrial Revolution. Yeah, kids, if you're watching this, you'd have been up in the morning like Daddy, down the mill, and that's true. Everybody worked, everybody. If you weren't working, they'd put you somewhere, you did something, you cleaned the clothes at the hospitals or in the prisons. You'd probably even go to prison if you refused to work. So we're actually in the canal, it's filled in, look, as we can see. That's the canal walls, the original canal walls. I'm going to follow that off.